Okay, hello. So today is the 2nd of May, 2022, and we'll pay homage to three architects. We'll begin with Leonardo da Vinci, who was not really an architect, and he didn't build much, if at all, but he still had an intense interest towards architecture, and it will be shown through drawings and projects, not developed sketches, but still done by the unbelievable hand of Leonardo da Vinci. So let's read a little bit about him. So he was born in 1452, so 570 years ago. So Leonardo da Vinci, you see, born on the 15th of April, when we talked again about him, but he died on the 2nd of May, 1519. So 503 years ago. Was an Italian polymath of the High Renaissance, who was active as a painter, sculptor, architect, draftsman, theorist, engineer, and scientist. While his fame initially rested on his achievements as a painter, he also became known for his notebooks, in which he made drawings and notes on variety of subjects, including anatomy, astronomy, botany, cartography, painting, and paleontology. Leonardo's genius epitomized the Renaissance humanist ideal, and his collective works compose a contribution to later generations of artists, rivaled only by that of his younger contemporary and fellow Florentine Michelangelo. Born out of a wedlock to a successful notary and a lower class woman in Vinci, he was educated by the renowned Italian painter and sculptor Andrea del Verrocchio. He began his career in Florence and then spent much time in the service of Ludovico Sforza in Milan. Later, he worked in Florence and Milan again, as well as briefly in Rome, all the while attracting a large following of imitators and students. Upon the invitation of François Ier, Francis I, in France, he spent his last 3 years in France, where he died in 1519. Since his death, there has not been a time where his achievements, diverse interests, personal life, and empirical thinking have failed to incite interest and admiration, making him a frequent namesake and subject in culture. Leonardo is among the greatest painters in the history of art, despite having many lost works and less than 25 attributed major works, including numerous unfinished works. He created some of the most influential paintings in Western art. His magnum opus, the Mona Lisa, is his best known work and often regarded as the world's most famous painting. The Last Supper is the most reproduced religious painting of all time, and his Vitruvian Man drawing is also regarded as a cultural icon. In 2017, Salvator Mundi, attributed in whole or part to Leonardo, was sold at auction for $450 million. As if this matters, but that's what our time seems to be interested in. Setting a new record for most expensive painting ever sold at public auction. This is a text from Wikipedia. This was the man, and indeed, a major force in culture, in art. Now we are going to see his native town, his native house where he was born in Vinci. I guess, taken care of, but still a house made of stone. It still looks nice, actually. So this is in Vinci, where he was born, Casa Natale di Leonardo. Now some drawings. He drew incessantly, as you know, and if I'm not mistaken, I think in one of the movies, I think Andrei Tarkovsky, since we have here a guest from Russia, I remember at least in one movie, a character in a film by Andrei Tarkovsky is looking through a book with Leonardo. I think Tarkovsky was a great admirer of Leonardo. And it happened that I had that book. I don't know what happened to it. I don't know where it is, but I did have it some long time ago. Drawings. Well, he drew perfectly. I mean, what else can we say? You know, whatever he drew mechanical inventions, or you know, he drew, you know, human figures. Whatever he drew impeccably. And what is amazing is that he made these technical drawings, essentially technical drawings, very moving, aesthetical, emotional. And, you know, any sketch by Leonardo is a masterpiece of drawing. There is no, I mean, it's amazing, you know, I mean, look at the precision, you know, that everything, and this came from his mind. It's not that he looked at something and, you know, he just drew from, you know, no, this came from his mind. It's an invention, but it is a really well drawn, and also sensitively. Again, it's not just the accuracy of the drawing, you know, it's also about the beauty of the drawing. Whatever he drew, and his imagination was you know, infinite, and so was his curiosity. He was accused when he was young that he was a necrophilia, that he had an abnormal liking for the dead, because he would go to the cemetery and apparently, you know, he showed his affection for the dead bodies more than you know, was perhaps necessary. Yeah, that's what I read. Is it true? I don't know. Anyway, a very interesting man, truly a great artist. And if he doesn't inspire, I don't know who can do this. I mean, look, you know, and I mean, you know, if an artist would draw just this page, and that artist could rest for the rest of his life happy that did something beautiful. But he has thousands of such pages, all drawn magnificently. This is also beautiful, and it's essentially it's a technical drawing. Amazing, absolutely amazing. No wonder François Premier, who was a great intellectual and lover of culture, invited him to France. And look at this tornado, you know, it's I'm speechless. Leonardo da Vinci. And what is truly very inspiring, of course, everything he did was and is and will be. But I would first mention, I would say, his insatiable curiosity. I mean, if we would have a fragment of his intellectual, artistic, and so on curiosity, we would be great. But we don't have it. Why is it that some people have it and some don't? I don't know. The truth is, we don't need a lot in life. A little bit of food, a bed somewhere to rest, but you can, even if you have you know, a liking for austerity, you could even sleep on the floor or on wood, or on, and you need maybe, you know, a pencil and some paper and a laptop these days. And with this laptop, you can access so much beauty and so much information and so many intriguing, you know, realities and non-realities, that if you have a little bit of imagination, you even forget to eat. That's what I think. It's actually not difficult to be happy on this earth. If you stop running on the highway and have, you know, mundane, insatiable longings, you can, if you have a creative, you know, disposition, no one can stop you from drawing. You know, you can make such a drawing if you have a pencil and some paper. You can, if you want. You can invent things. You can design a chair. You don't even need clients. And we are going to see his architectural studies. You know, nobody asked him to do them. He did them because he loved architecture. Well, he loved everything. You know, this insatiable curiosity is absolutely amazing. And actually, again, I don't know why we don't have it, or we have it in a less, much less. If we combine the example of Leonardo with the saying of Blaise Pascal, that all the troubles of humankind derive from the fact that we can't stand still in a room. Well, if we can stand still in a room, and in a way, this is what COVID is suggesting to us, to, you know, calm down and, you know, stay in a room, read, reflect, meditate, dream, draw, write, would have a better world. Unfortunately, as you know, there are people who think that the world would be better if we send bombers in another country and provoke unending suffering. It is unbelievable to me what is happening. War in the 21st century, and it's not the first one, nor will it be, unfortunately, the last one. In 2002, 2003, the United States launched a war in Iraq, where 1 million people died. 1 million people died. Nobody knows exactly because nobody counted the Iraqis. We only know that 35,000 American soldiers died. But I read that somewhere between kind of 200,000 and 1 million Iraqis died. For what? For oil. For oil. So there. I'm totally against the invasion of Ukraine, but I was also totally against the invasion of Iraq and also the invasion of Afghanistan. Humankind cannot learn anything. Rem Koolhaas was correct. Humans don't learn. And we are playing with fire. This is what happens when people do not educate themselves, when they prefer to wage wars instead of reading and, you know, understanding their true dimensions. Architecture. The Vitruvian Man, you know very well, but I'll read this little text. The Vitruvian Man, originally known as Le proporzioni del corpo umano secondo Vitruvio, the proportions of the human body according to Vitruvius, is a drawing made by the Italian polymath Leonardo da Vinci in about 1490. It is accompanied by notes based on the work of the Roman architect Vitruvius. The drawing, which is in ink on paper, depicts a man in two superimposed positions with his arms and legs apart and is inscribed in a circle and square. Here it is. We all know it. Another magnificent work. And it's just a page, you know, like letter size, but it's unbelievably beautiful and perfect, you know. I think I read that actually Leonardo wrote in mirror. You know, you cannot read it like this. It's written in mirror. That's how he wrote. Why he did so, I don't know, but it's another amazing thing about this amazing man. The drawing represents Da Vinci's concept of the ideal human body proportions. Its inscription in a square and a circle comes from a description by the ancient Rome architect Vitruvius in Book 3 of his treatise De Architectura. Yet, as it has been demonstrated, Leonardo did not represent Vitruvius' proportions of the limbs, but rather included those he found himself after measuring male models in Milan. While the drawing is named after Vitruvius, some scholars today question the appropriateness of such a title, given that it was first used in the 1940s. This image demonstrates the blend of mathematics and art during the Renaissance and demonstrates Leonardo's deep understanding of proportion. In addition, this picture represents a cornerstone of Leonardo's attempts to relate man to nature. Encyclopedia Britannica online states Leonardo envisaged the great picture chart of the human body he had produced through his anatomical drawings and Vitruvian Man as a cosmographia del minor mondo, minor mondo, cosmography of the microcosm. He believed the workings of the human body to be an analogy for the workings of the universe. He was not the only one to believe so, and I think he was correct, and they were correct. Also, there are in present days attempts to, question a little bit this magnificent work and its meanings. There are attempts to include not just the male body, but also the female body, which is different. So, this is still, a work which belonged to a kind of a male-centered world, a world where, the man is considered the human being par excellence, but we know it's not so. Anyway, the Vitruvian Man, we know it. This is another Vitruvian Man illustration in the edition of De Architectura by Vitruvius, illustrated edition by Cesare Cesariano, 1521. So this was done after the drawing by Leonardo. This one is, I mean, maybe, when you are accustomed to something for too long, you don't look at it so curiously any longer. But when we look at this page is more enticing in a way, because it's more, it's different. It's, it's unexpected in a way. Sketch of Milan Cathedral by Leonardo da Vinci. He drew many things relating to architecture. He loved the octagon. You see the octagon continuously in plans of his sketches, architectural sketches. Machineries, here again is the octagon, fragmented, but still the octagon. And you can see the writing is in mirror. I don't know why he wrote so. Anyway, fortresses, he sketched. He only built, but from what I remember, it's not very proven that the only built work by him is a famous staircase at the Chambord castle in France. And there was a bridge being built in Turkey based on his drawings. Now look at the intricacies of this mechanical, drawing. The intricacy of this drawing is just, it's mind-blowing, because it's not just a nice drawing, but this was supposed to function just as he envisioned it. And again, it's an invention. Sketchy. In a way, he was the quintessential amateur, because he was not, I even wrote once a little poem called In a Society of Professionals. He was not a professional in the sense that we use that word today, like someone who is efficient, who accomplishes things as needed in time and perfectly and finalizes the work. He finalized almost nothing. His incredible frescoes were done with an invention of his, which actually didn't prove, quite capable to handle the attacks of time, and didn't last. And I think we could call him some kind of an amateur of genius, because everything he did was you know, with very few exceptions, maybe Mona Lisa, but with Mona Lisa, he struggled for years to do that painting. He was not, in painting, perhaps he achieved a few so-called masterpieces, but otherwise, well, everything is a masterpiece. The smallest sketch by Leonardo is a masterpiece, but it shows a work in progress. That's what it is. And but then on the other hand, you know, the word amateur in the present has a pejorative sense. You know, to be an amateur means to be almost worthless because you are the opposite of the professional. The professional is the one, you know, we trust, not the amateur. But the problem is that the amateur derives his or her name from the verb amare, which in Latin means to love. What the professional often doesn't have, the amateur does. That is love. The amateur is maybe, you know, a little bit so-called superficial, but it's not really superficiality, because if you do a work out of love, it cannot really be superficial. It's just that it doesn't sell. You don't do it, you don't do it for a profit. The amateur doesn't work for a profit. The amateur works out of love, you know, collects, has hobbies, and some people, you know, accomplish beautiful things in the name of so-called being an amateur. I mean, there were great architects who were so-called amateurs, you know, like Christopher Wren, who built not only 40 cathedrals in London, but also St. Paul's Cathedral, the biggest and the most important cathedral in London. As an architect, he was an amateur. And I can give many examples, because the amateurs act out of their heart, of love, of curiosity. And so was Leonardo. You know, nobody asked him to do those sketches. He did them because he loved architecture. And he was, as I said, insatiably curious. The professional, on the other hand, sells his services. And, you know, yes, sometimes we need professionals, because we do need a job to be done properly, quickly, efficiently, and not expensively. But often in the field of deep creativity, professionals produce rather predictable, cold-blooded work. This is my opinion. I even wrote once a little poem called "In a Society of Professionals," and I arrived at the you know, blasphemous conclusion that God himself was an amateur. Because if he was not an amateur, he could have, you know, eliminated toothache, not to speak about, you know, the tragedies that come upon us often, and often also because of the humans that he created. You know, some even think about you know, the appropriateness of creating Adam, you know, the first man. And in fact, on that scene on the Sistine Chapel, where God approaches his hand to the hand of Adam in the scene of the creation of man, I don't know if you noticed, but there is a woman in the sky, in the heavens, on the left side of God, and God has his left arm around her shoulders. Who is that woman? Because she cannot be Eva, because Eva was born after the creation of Adam, now from his bone, or at least this is what the Bible says, which shows to me that the Bible was written by male theologians. Because I wonder how the male would have felt if he was born from the bone of Eva. Anyway, architecture by the great Leonardo. And now the grand staircase at Chateau de Chambord, the Chambord Castle from 1519. As we read, he was invited by Francois Ier in France. And apparently he did this. I'm not an expert, but I read, and this is what I remember. it is suspected it was, based on his project or his design or his drawings. It's a great staircase. I mean, this is done with stone. Let's not neglect the material. And the spiral itself seems to express a certain interest that Leonardo had in turbulences and so on. It's a double helix, and it's a very fine work. This is the drawing, the double helix of Palladio. I love the drawings of Palladio, and I wonder, Palladio didn't make renderings as we understand them today. No, he didn't need to make spectacular renderings, with tormented clouds on the sky and exotic cars in front of a banal building and exciting human silhouettes. His drawings are Euclidean, nothing else. Ink drawings in 2 dimensions. He didn't even use the perspective, although the perspective was already invented for at least 150 years by the time Palladio made his works. How do you explain this? And in fact, I am inviting you to research this subject, Palladio and the lack of perspective. Why was he content with bidimensional drawings, Euclidean drawings, plan, section, view, nothing else? 2-dimensional representations, the most simple, in a way, the most banal, but we are talking about Palladio. Why didn't he use perspective? This is the question I have. And it's true, I am an adversary of perspective, the way it is employed today, because that so-called scientific perspective had all the reasons to be when Brunelleschi and Piero della Francesca invented it, but less so today. Why? Because I think today we shouldn't be so confident that we are still in control of everything, and that we should control even the view, the visualization of a building in controlling terms. I think we should be more questioning the validity of so much control, especially rational control, because that's what perspective, linear perspective is based on rational control. So again, why didn't Palladio use it? We are talking about the quintessential architect of the world, maybe ever. So moving forward with the work that some think, maybe many think that is the work of Leonardo at the Chateau Chambord, Francois Ier, the King of France, truly an enlightened king, unlike so many presidents today, with the gray suits and the red burgundy ties. We need cultured leaders, and we don't have them, and sensitive leaders, we don't have them. No, most presidents today are lawyers or homo economicus or businessmen or owners of casinos, like you know who. Well, at least he didn't own brothels like his grandfather. I'm talking about Mr. Trump. Look at this beautiful sketch. We saw the drawing by Palladio, and we see the sketch of Leonardo of a stair that is, double. He liked doubleness. And many important creators love doubleness, or to use the word of Peter Eisenman, two-ness, T-W-O-N-E-S-S. At first, I thought that this word two-ness was invented by Peter Eisenman, but no, it does exist. So you can find it in, in the English language dictionaries. Anyway, hello, sir. Leonardo the architect. So Da Vinci designed the bridge as part, the one we see drawn on the left, The sketch designed the bridge as part of a civil engineering project for this Sultan Bayezid II of Constantinople in Istanbul. And they built it kind of based on his, I kind of like more the sketch than the built work. Anyway, you see scattered genius on many pages, scattered sketches after sketches after sketches. And by the way of amateur, you probably know that there is an architect in China who also received the Pritzker Prize in architecture, Wang Shu, who received the Pritzker, although his architecture office is called amateur architecture. Fine, no? Nice. Paintings by this unbelievable man, Leonardo. I mean, look at this, you know. I love photography, but I would rather be able to paint like this or you know, have this painting on my wall at least for an hour or so. Look at the expression. Look at that face. Leonardo da Vinci employed a technique which is called sfumato, which is to soften the edge of the figures so there is no brutal separation between, let's say, a face or a body, an entity, and its surroundings. And I think he achieved, I mean, look at the hand, just this hand. It's unbelievably well drawn and well painted. And the face and the expression, this is not just a beautiful face. You know, it's fantastic. Now this work, yes, it's more cryptical, more you know, more static, more. But even here, there is spirituality in these figures. It's not just the figurative truth or the literal truth. This is, I think, some kind of a refurbished image, because this particular work, The Last Supper, was badly damaged because he employed an auspicious and unauspicious technique for the fresco, and it deteriorated dramatically over the years. And of course, Mona Lisa, you know, with which struggled very important modern painters, you know, trying to challenge somehow Leonardo, but in a very, well, sometimes humorous, but no more than that way, you know, like Marcel Duchamp put a mustache under her nose, and Salvador Dali did something else, and even Andy Warhol, I think, played with the Mona Lisa. They all play with it, but no one could paint it the way Leonardo did. Some people think that the mysterious smile of Mona Lisa represents, in a way, himself, psychologically, Mona Lisa. Who knows? It's an imago mundi, in a way. You know, it represents everything, you know, both in space and time. Beautiful work. Unfortunately, it's so beautiful that if you go to the Louvre to look at it, you can't, because of the sea of people staring at it and above other people's shoulders. And so it's very difficult to actually be able to see it. Leonardo da Vinci, A Search for Perfection. Now, really, you know, you are here for people besides me. And why can't we search for perfection instead of watching TV or, you know, having dreams of conquering another country? Why can't we actually search for perfection? As the wise people of the world, they all said the same thing. The great victory is over yourself, not over someone else, but over yourself. Try to perfect yourself as much as possible. Angel and la Virgin de la Rocas, 1495. Beautiful works. What can we say? Now this is hard to look at because it's not it's not the real fresco that he did. That's it. So we talked about him in April. Now we talked about him again, and that's it for this year. Now I will continue this travel through the work of people connected with the 2nd of May, with a Dutch modern architect, because the Dutch continue to be those incredible, provocateur almost in architecture and in art as well. I mean, after all, let's not forget, Vincent van Gogh was Dutch, wasn't he? And so was Rembrandt and many, many others. What's the matter with the Dutch? But this is an architect. I learned about him about a year ago when I made a presentation. And I think he's worth talking about. He's almost unknown, at least in some parts of the world. Marius, I don't even know if I can pronounce his name. Marius Duintjer, 1908, 1983. So Marius Duintjer is chiefly known as the architect of a couple of colossal office buildings in the heart of Amsterdam, the head office of the Netherlands Bank, DNB, the Dutch Bank, and the offices of the ABN, whatever. He built a lot more than that, however, including 2 beautiful churches. And yes, in my opinion, his churches are his most remarkable works. His work can be categorized as an example of shake hands architecture. Interesting, I didn't know there is such an expression, the shake hands architecture, a combination of clean lines and the abstraction of modernism and traditional elements. Interesting, no? So remember this, please. The shake hands architecture. Well, what does it mean to shaking hands architecture? Well, it means an architecture which unites the opposites, that makes peace between two hands, symbolically, metaphorically, in this case, modernism and traditional elements. Conjunctio oppositorum. Here was the man. Obviously, he had some importance because he even made it to, I don't know if he arrived with his portrait on a stamp, but he is a well-known Dutch architect that not too many people know about. Okay, here he is in his office, 2004 is the picture. And here, one of these melancholy Dutchmen. So let's look at this, church from 1956, 56, Kruiskerk. It's already, I think, impressive. Even in this black and white picture, the Dutch know how to work with brick, but this is modernism and of a high quality modernism, but also, the way the brick walls are woven, I think could be somehow referred to as shaking hands with tradition. I love this work by this architect, whose name I have difficulties to pronounce. Look at this corner here. Out of nothing, he creates something very interesting, no? I mean, I never saw something like this before. And again, it's possible to do beautiful things. Please be kind and turn off the microphone. I hear a noise, unless you want to say something. Thank you. So, again, if you love what you do, and if you do what you love, you can create, you can invent, and again, you don't need to run madly on the highway or go to the casino. You can play very adventurously in your work, in your project. I think it's a great building. I love it. I love it. And exactly because of these shaking hands that was mentioned in that short description, you see that it is a modern work, but also it wouldn't infuriate what we call tradition. And yes, brick, I mean, again, this I think is brilliant what he did here. This is probably, I don't know, to collect water from the rain, or but you see, it became a sculptural element. And you have here concave situation, and then this convexity here. And so there is There is even eros here. There is even, you know, some tension, some conflict. Very interesting. I never saw this before. And look at the building. Who would say that this is not a very interesting building? And it's you know, it's a church, but you know, it connects with the rest of the land with these two buildings facing each other that are rather domestic. But in a way, in this triad, we see a conjunction not only between modernism and tradition, but also between the profane and the sacred, to use the title of a book by Mircea Eliade. Very nice work. What can we say? This architect's name, family name, I should really make efforts to try to memorize. Fortunately, his first name is not so difficult, Marius. No, the Dutch continue to surprise me, and they continue to surprise everybody. Really, it's something about the Dutch. I don't know what it is. They are unstoppable in the field of architecture, in the field of art, and not only there, but if you look at on this day in history, many Dutch people are, you know, from various disciplines are, you know, famous. They are hardworking, and the strange thing is that you know, they are considered to be pragmatic, but somehow they arrive at high levels of poetry exactly at the peak of the pragmatism. Very interesting. I mean, look at this church. It is in a way, you could almost say a kind of a logical, rational building, but it's also emotionally charged. And in its clarity, you also see poetry. I see it. Now this is in Amsterdam. You are going to see another church later on. No, this is the same. No, it's a, yeah, sorry. This is a second church by him, the second church. This is the one, Kerk means, Kirche means church. 1956 in Amsterdam. I think he should have built more churches, but he didn't. Anyway, he built all kinds of things, giant office buildings and so on. Even this one, you know, is not bad, I would say. Now, really, you know, not that I want to be again malicious towards Peter Zumthor, but, you know, the pathetic chapel that Peter Zumthor built cannot be compared to this building. I don't think it can. Okay, maybe this tower is a little bit too assertive. I guess you could say so. Anyway. Another church. I forgot about the third one. This one also is interesting, but I couldn't find, let's see, now I only found, maybe that's why I forgot it, and I should not have forgotten it, is this one is interesting too. But I only have these three black and white pictures with questionable insufficient resolution. But this one, I think, is interesting too. On the other hand, the Dutch often, like Dudok and others, they employ these very tall, you know, towers, like in this case, a clock tower, but they use it also sometimes for city halls. I guess it's, you know, to an extent at least, it's justifiable. After all, it's the house of God there. I like this detail, but that's all I found. Just these three pictures of this third church that he built. What? He built another one. God, I should have reviewed my own presentation. So this is the fourth church built. When was it? A little later, 1962. I find it interesting too. I mean, you know, if you eliminate the little squares of the large glass surfaces, you would not see much, something of a lot of interest. But the way, you know, he divided a large, what otherwise would have been a large glass surface in these small little squares, you know, has a feeling for what we call tradition, you know, when, because in the, you know, a certain past, there wasn't, the large surfaces of glass were not available. So that's why even with larger windows were created from fragments, like here. I like this. I like this, you know, softening of modernity or modernism. Otherwise, the structure of the building is, you know, it could have been designed today too. Now, this is, what is it? I don't know what it is. It's a big shopping center, but quite, I would say quite, no, it's, no, sorry, I know what it is. He designed something, this, it's just the, I can't read it, you know, it's a center for something within the airport, but he didn't design the airport. The airport is more recent. I don't know exactly what he designed here. That's why I didn't even insist to show other pictures. High school by Marius, and you continue, please. You see again the windows. I really like these windows. You know, of course, in the end, or the end of the day, the loss of energy probably is about the same, like in the case of a single piece of glass. But aesthetically speaking, this building is communicating a more moderate feeling, you know, not arrogantly, you know, looking forward to, you know, create a so-called total transparency, which Jean Nouvel considered to be actually obscene. Although he used it himself sometimes, and glass is also important in the works of Atelier Jean Nouvel. Interesting high school though, and located beautifully, of course. In fact, I don't know if this is good for education. If I was a student in high school, in this school, I would look all the time through the window. I would not look at the professor. Something else in Amsterdam. No, he was obviously a fine architect in the field of proportions. He proportioned very well the elements that constituted the building. What is this? Another, he built some big buildings. I still like the churches more, but these are not bad either. And yes, they have a certain, I don't know if I can call it modesty, because the buildings are big, but they are not arrogantly big. I don't know how to put it. You know, that like there are certain human beings who are big, but they are not arrogant in their bigness. You know, they're kind of, you know, a certain modesty, even if, you know, they are big. I don't know if I explained well, but this is the feeling I have when I look at the buildings of this architect. Another one from Amsterdam, 1973, is this one here. Now you see, you know, it's 1973. The glass came forward with its desire for attention. Anyway, if you arrive in Amsterdam and if you come across, you know, this building or, you know, similar buildings in a way, now you know who made them. Marius, and then I stop because I cannot pronounce his family name. That's it. And now we go to the third presentation today, and this is an architect. I learned about him yesterday, to my shame, and let's see what he has to offer us. It's not a big presentation, but I still think he has something to show us, this architect. Let's see. Giovanni, that's just an initial, and Servandoni. He also had a French name because he was Italian, but he worked a lot in France. And no, I think I'm wrong. It's clear that yeah, it's clear that I learned about him just yesterday. Just a second. Okay. Now I was right. I thought because I am obsessed now almost with Yanis Xenakis, who also changed his name in France. Instead of Yanis, he chose the name Jean. And for a second, I had the feeling that I confounded, Servandoni with Xenakis, but they both actually changed their first name in France to Jean. So Giovanni became Jean, and Niccolo became Nicolas. So Jean-Nicolas Servan was actually, well, known as Giovanni Niccolo Servandoni, but he was an Italian working in France. You see, born May 2nd, 1695, and died in 1766, was an Italian decorator, architect, scene painter, firework designer. This is an interesting, qualification, and trompe-l'œil specialist. Now, let's face it, out of these, several attributes or qualifications, 3 of them would be totally inconceivable today. That of a decorator, a firework designer, and trompe-l'œil specialist. Although Bernard Tschumi, a significant force in architecture these days, and for some time, of course, in the last 20, 30 years, said that the best architecture is fireworks. So if fireworks is the best architecture, then Jean-Nicolas Servan or Giovanni Niccolo Servandoni was the man for the job. Doing the right thing, the important thing. He was born in Florence, the son of a French carriage driver. I love this. Yeah, he was the son of a French carriage driver. So you see, his father was French. So maybe, returning to roots was not just, a sign of, accommodating himself to the new surroundings. Interesting. Jean-Nicolas Servan, or Giovanni, he's known mainly as Giovanni Niccolo Servandoni. That's how I learned about him. So he was educated as an artist of perspective in Rome. And let's say it again. He lived after Palladio. Palladio, as far as I know, never used the perspective except in the Teatro Olimpico, where he realized a work where he employed perspectival illusions. But in drawings, I never saw a perspectival drawing by Palladio. While this man, living a good number of years after Palladio, was educated as an artist of perspective in Rome, and was a pupil of Giovanni Paolo Panini, an interesting architect, worked in London as a set designer at the recently founded Royal Academy of Music, but moved to Paris in 1724, where he became director of decorations. This is an interesting job. Why is it we don't have any longer such jobs? Director of decorations or director of fireworks. The Paris Opera, at that time situated in the Théâtre du Palais Royal. He became a member of the Académie Royale de Peinture et de Sculpture in 1731. His activity was considerable, whether as a painter or as an inventor of scenic contrivances for fête are, how to say, I should leave it like this untranslated, but you understand, parties. At the marriage of royal personages. He decorated public festivals in England, France, and Portugal. During the year 1738, 1743, and 1754, 1758, anyway, 200, about 70 years ago, 65, Servandoni produced a series of successful theatrical productions, much in the style of 17th century machine plays, with an emphasis on elaborate changes in decor and special effects, often set to music. Unlike the machine plays of the 17th century, Servandoni's productions use pantomime rather than dialogue, with a description of the story provided in the program. His productions were typically based on well-known stories from literature and mythology, such as the Spectacle de Pandore, which told the tale of Prometheus and Pandora. I don't know, anyway, something is a little bit strange here if my memories from mythology are correct. Or La Forêt Enchantée, the Enchanted Forest, which was inspired by Torquato Tasso's Jerusalem Delivered. He died in Paris in the early 1766. By the way, Leonardo da Vinci also sometimes did what Servandoni did, you know, costumes and theatrical, you know, I mean, stage design and, you know, creating, you know, all kinds of necessary things for fete, for, you know, royal parties and so on. Here he was, and there is a Servandoni, you see, the Italian name is more often employed. Servandoni, Jean Nicolas, there is a picture of him here, which is not very like this one, perhaps. He doesn't look really, you know, he doesn't look very impressive and very happy, but he was probably a very nice man, and he even made it on a stamp. As you can see, the 250th anniversary of Giovanni Niccolo Servandoni, I imagine, of his, you know, of his death. Servandoni again, decorateur. Yeah, he looks younger. Anyway, I will see many drawings and the paintings by him and interesting works. Even this image is rather interesting. I don't think he did it. It's some kind of a collage. Someone did it with his perspectival architectural drawing or rendering, and you know, his portrait incorporated there. So now we look at some of his visualizations about architecture. Sorry about the previous two ones, the resolution was not great. This is still a work in progress about this architect I knew nothing about until yesterday. But what do we see here? We see a cow, some animals, and we see a triumphal arch. We see triumphal architecture. We see, you know, rather desolate and maybe tormented tree. And we see a statue or two or so. So, you know, well, he lived at the time when Piranesi lived as well. And at that time, the animals were running even between the columns of the temple of Hera at Paestum, that incredible temple, pre-Doric temple, which you know, received the total admiration of Louis Kahn, who said that for him Paestum was more important than the Parthenon, and then it was equally admired by Goethe and Winkelmann. And so Piranesi created beautiful etchings of that temple. There also, in some etchings, you can see animals, you know. Yes, it was it was the 18th century. Wow, you know, they didn't have the bureaucracy of today to interdict cows to enter in the precinct of a temple. What do we see here? We see the immense architectures and minuscule human beings. I mean, look at the human beings. Well, we would say that those minuscule human beings build these gigantic architectonic structures which became ruins. Still very moving, still as ruins, dramatic and yes, impressive. But I don't know if you use here the correct size of human beings in relation with these monuments. But the monuments are impressive, let's face it, very impressive. I kind of like them even more as ruins. Other ruins here, there was a love for ruins in the 18th century. Piranesi was born in 1720 and died in 1758. So, you know, he was a contemporary of this architect, Servandoni. Yeah. I could talk forever, you know, looking at these pictures, because what do we see? We see, you know, the desire of human beings to last forever, you know, to conquer the passage of time. But then we see the clouds kind of smiling at us, you know, and passing by. And then we see, you know, ruined buildings, the human history, you know, they didn't have bombers at that time, but human beings always found ways to destroy what they did or what other people did. So, you know, this work actually is very interesting. Is the stage design for an opera, you know, performance, but it's, I would say, very modern. No, it's psychoanalytically charged. Is you know, it reminds me of the Gothic, you know, representations of Hans Pelzig somehow, but these were done 200 years earlier. This is rendering from his time, broken, you know, architectures, statues, lots of statues, and then around the statues, a few human beings, you know, like us, ephemeral. Columns, a river, the sky, very blue. Here is the golden frame of an artwork by him. The truth is, you know, even if these are, you know, artistic works, you know, paintings and engravings and so on, I still think they have relevance for architecture, you know, and they make you, you know, they make you dream, you know, they make you think also, you know, in my opinion, they are inspiration. Servandoni. Sorry about this. Here is another one. The magnificence of architecture. He also built, I will end this short presentation with two buildings where one of them was completely designed by him, and the other one, a very important church in Paris. He took over the designs of the original designs and, you know, accomplished the building, a very important church in Paris. We'll arrive at it. So he didn't just do paintings and drawings and fête, meaning party, you know, works, but also he built buildings. Ruins. It was, you know, these people, I think, in the 18th century had some. It's a very interesting century in a way. I will try to learn more about it. Yeah, because modernity was knocking at the door, and yet there was this nostalgia for antiquity. You know, I mean, look at these ruins. You know, imperial ruins. No. The man was in Rome, after all, and Rome is impressive in this field, very much so, still. And then I'll show also a few graphic works like this one. I guess it's like some kind of a stage design for a, you know, a performance. Here another, you know, graphic work by Servandoni, and now we'll go to two built works by him. This castle, Dursel Castle, I think he built it in Belgium. Yes, it's the castle of Hengen, I don't know how to pronounce, I guess like in French, Hengen. I see another name, the Belgium design of Giovanni Niccolò Servandoni. So this castle, Dursel Castle, also known the Castle of Dursel, used to be the private summer residence of the Duke of Ursel in Hingen, in the municipality of Bornem, province of Antwerp, in Belgium. Today is the property of the state and open to the public. And here it is, in all its splendor, built by Servandoni. And it's not a bad building, it's a little bit, maybe it's a little bit too clean and it looks suspiciously new. But that's because the Belgians took care of it. But you are going to see from the side is it even has a certain modernity, if I could say so. I don't think it's bad, and I wouldn't mind living here, in this cubicle here, have a nice spacious room and write poetry and play the violin if I knew how to play the violin, or just lay in bed and look at the ceiling and dream that there was no war in Ukraine. Well, yeah, Servandoni in Belgium. Not bad. In its own way, it's a cozy castle. Now, of course, not everybody, was capable of surrounding, even a castle with so much water. So apparently there was someone there, with some financial force, maybe not just financial, political and social and so on. Interesting work though, in its own way, nothing, nothing outrageous, but kept well by the Belgians, and it's a work which should make Servandoni not quite unhappy. And now we arrive at the last work that I showed, this very important church in Paris. In fact, the second biggest church in Paris after Notre Dame de Paris, Saint-Sulpice. And let's read. The Church of Saint-Sulpice is a Roman Catholic church in Paris, France, on the east side of Place Saint-Sulpice, in the Latin quarter of the 6th arrondissement. It is only slightly smaller than Notre Dame, and thus the second largest church in the city. It is dedicated to Sulpicius the Pious. Construction of the present building, the second church on the site, began in 1646. During the 18th century, an elaborate gnomon, the gnomon of Saint-Sulpice, was constructed in the church. Construction began in 1646 to designs which had been created by Christophe Gamard, but the front interfered and only the Lady Chapel had been built by 1660, when Daniel Gittard provided a new general design for most of the church. Gittard completed the sanctuary, ambulatory, apsidal chapels, transept, and north portal, after which construction was halted for lack of funds. Gilles-Marie Oppenort and Giovanni Servandoni, our hero today, adhering closely to Gittard's design, supervised further construction, mainly the nave and side chapels, from 1719 to 1745. That's a long time, no? 26 years. The decoration was executed by the brothers Sébastien Antoine Slotz and Paul Ambroise Slotz. And this is the building, the second largest church in Paris, where Servandoni had a significant role for 26 years. And it's not the usual church if you look at it, and it's rather, it is domineering, but because of the duality of the towers so stringently asserting themselves, the power is diluted or divided in two, so to speak. It's a surprising work in a way. Still interesting, an interesting work, and you see the scale is significant if you look at the human silhouettes. This is a view from the air. We are talking about Paris. Yeah, the interior is, so he worked here in the interior, the nave and the lateral, apsides. It's, what can we say? It's a big work in France, an important church. I personally prefer the Gothic, the Gothic sacred architecture, and not only the Gothic, but it's something about as I said, the 18th century already had modernism at its door, if the door was not already open. And the building kind of shows it. When you look at this building, you would never say this was built in the Middle Ages, or not even during the Renaissance. No, it's a newer building. But the interior has interesting things, and it is massive. It is, the space, I'm sure, is impressive, and it would have been even more impressive if there were no chairs. You probably know, in the Gothic cathedrals and in the old cathedrals, at first there were no chairs or benches. Indeed, how could you sit down, comfortably in front of God? This was supposed to be the house of God, but the more we advanced towards modernity, human beings became more and more tired with more, tiring physiques. So the chairs had to show up. And the truth is, if you are a tired tourist, one of these chairs could be quite a nice addition to the church. So, Saint-Sulpice, Paris, France. That's it. So let's wish him happy birthday, and let's wish happy birthday to Marius, the previous architect we talked about, and to also remember again Leonardo da Vinci. Thank you.